learn from history, because people are repeating the mistakes of their ancestors. People, you know, when you begin to act like you are dumber than those who came before you, it makes those who came before you even feel bad for you, because at least you should learn from their own errors. Let's get back to this. It was clear to all right-thinking people. Who is speaking now? Dr. B.J. Imkeme from Calabar. It was clear to all right-thinking people that these people, that is the minorities, wanted to remain within the Federation of Nigeria, but with states of their own, in which they enjoyed the right of self-determination. These did not suit the Igbos of the newly declared Republic of Biafra, and so they were determined either to force the 5 million non-Igbos into their republic or to exterminate them systematically. To this end, Igbo soldiers were quickly sent to all non-Igbo areas with instructions to keep down the people, detain or even kill all who dared raise a voice in protest against the idea of Biafra. Should I believe him? Of course yes. Why? We've read to other sources. You've seen it in Sunset in Biafra, you've seen it in Sunset in Biafra by A.H.M, and you have seen it in Ojuku's Rebellion and World Opinion by Nabo Graham-Douglas. He's not making anything up. Now, please get ready, it's about to get serious. The Provincial Secretary for Calabar, an Igbo man, called a mass meeting in June of 1967 and addressed the Calabar people thus, and I quote, "You Calabar people say you want a state of your own. Let me tell you that by the time the federal troops come here to enforce this mad idea, there will be no one left but grass and weeds, for we shall have flattened your land and killed all you Efiks." From then on, the non-Igbos of the eastern region were subjected to torture, detention, all forms of human indignities, and even killing. In Asang, a town in Enion Division, where I come from, and which is just a mile from Akwa, my own village, all the inhabitants, numbering about 400, were carried away to an unknown destination. 2 women, one a relation of mine who had been bedridden for 2 years, were slaughtered in cold blood, because the soldiers said it would be a burden to carry them along, and they were under instructions not to leave alive any person in the town. On the way out, a woman gave birth to a babe, Ade, and was groaning in her travail. The soldiers bundled her out of the canoe which was taking them away, shot both mother and the innocent child, only a few minutes old. In Atanonoyo, another town in Anoing Division, the whole town was burnt down together with all the people the Igbo soldiers could lay their hands on. An uncle of mine was killed together with his wife and 4 or 5 children. The only surviving child is a girl of 10 years, her right arm severed, who now lives to tell the tale of how they were all lined up by the riverbank and shot. Luckily for her, she did not die and is being cared for by me now. In Ikorekpayong, 3 miles from my hometown, the Igbo soldiers rang the church bell one Sunday afternoon and forced everybody in the village at gunpoint to assemble in the church building for a special prayer for the survival of the so-called Biafra. When all were assembled, the Igbo soldiers surrounded the church, set it on fire, burning down the villagers and shooting those who tried to escape. It is estimated that more than 300 men, women and children were massacred in and around that church that day. At Ikoropot, 2 wells were filled with the bodies of men, women and children, all thrown in there by Igbo soldiers to die. In Idro, a village 4 miles from my village, the men folk were forced to dig 3 large pits, each 7 feet deep. All the men and women were tied hand and foot and thrown into them. Children were dumped in with their parents. 5 men were left to cover each pit with earth. When this task was done, the men were themselves all shot dead and their bodies placed on the mounds. I saw these bodies and the mounds myself when I arrived there 3 days after the gruesome and inhuman incident. On the day federal troops landed in Calabar, that was 18th October 1967, there were 169 civilians in detention by so-called Biafran soldiers in the Calabar Army Barracks. 169 civilians, listen now. They were all lined up and shot dead by Igbo soldiers. Those dead include Mr. Effiong Spats, ex-member for Calabar in the Nigerian Parliament, and Mr. Ekpayong, a senior lecturer in Nsukka University, well known to Professor Njoku. Even as I speak, these acts of genocide are still being carried on by the Igbos in minority areas still under occupation. When they were being chased out of Port Harcourt, the so-called Biafran soldiers killed off almost all the Rivers people they could lay hand on, in accordance with instruction from their high command. The killings continue now in the riverine areas not yet under federal control. Where is that riverine area? The one we read from A.H.M, the one we read from Nabo Graham-Douglas. Recently, 200 Ibom men and women who had been under detention in Umuahia were taken out to face a mob who brutally murdered them in cold blood outside a Progress Hotel. There are many other gruesome incidents of children and pregnant mothers killed in marketplaces by Igbo soldiers, of houses and property of non-Igbos wantonly destroyed. Similar stories of atrocities in the minority areas have been told by other prominent Nigerians from the southeastern and river states, including Chief Holmes, Dr. Graham-Douglas. They are quoting him now. See why it's good to read money books. They might quote one of those people. So they say similar stories of atrocity in minority areas have been told by other prominent Nigerians from the southeastern and river states, including Chief Holmes and Dr. Graham-Douglas, former Attorney General of the former Eastern Region Military Government under Governor Ojukwu. Contrary to Dr. Njoku's claims, the minority peoples have always welcomed federal troops with enthusiasm. The bulk of personnel in the Nigerian Navy, including the commander, Rear Admiral J.E.A. Way, come from these minority areas of the former Eastern region. The war to crush the rebellion is not a tribal war against Igbos. Even secessionist leaders concede that the concept of an Igbo apartheid state or Igbo-stan is untenable. If the federal government were to concede an independent state embracing only Igbo land, the state would not be viable, and the secessionist leaders would not accept it. Consequently, they talk of Biafra embracing all and the oil of the river state and because of access to the sea. It is, however, to be noted that 8 of the 12 states of Nigeria with 80% of its population have no seaports. The East Central state is therefore not unique in having no seaport within its boundaries. They've been talking about this seaport since 1967. They are still crying about it since 2055, as if God has to create a new earth. God is going to create a new heaven and a new earth, but that's much later. It's not now. And when that happens, there will be no need for Nigeria.